Hello and welcome to Canvas the Niger-Delta Roundtable, where I discuss the future of this region blessed with hydrocarbon resources and arguably with potentials that haven't been fully explored. Hopefully, initiatives of this nature will help us do that. Now, every week we give time to reflecting on topics relevant to the development of the Niger-Delta and her people, and we're doing that this week as well. And we'll be taking a look at matters determined to take this region to a more promising future. And do note that the program is sponsored by the operator of the NNPC, the SPDC, Petroleum Energy's Ajuru joint venture, the Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria Limited, headquartered here in Port Harcourt. I'm Adidai, and thank you for joining us. Now, on this edition of Canvas the Niger-Delta Roundtable, we are considering the topic Shell's relationships with universities. On today's episode, we delve into the fascinating world of Shell's university relations. Shell, a global energy company, is renowned for its commitment to fostering innovation, research, and talent development. Now, this commitment is evident in their robust relationships with universities worldwide. Through these partnerships, Shell supports academic research, sponsors student projects, offers internships, and contributes to curriculum development. Now, these initiatives not only benefit the students and the universities, but also help Shell stay at the forefront of technological advancements in the energy sector. Now, stay tuned as we explore how these collaborations are shaping the future of energy, driving sustainable solutions, and empowering the next generation of leaders in the energy sector. Again, today, topic on Canvas is Shell's relationships with universities. And my guest is Professor Kenneth Nweke. Professor Kenneth Nweke is a professor of politics and governance at the Ignatius Ajuru University of Education, Rumuolumeni, here in Port Harcourt. He served as a commissioner in the River State Independent Electoral Commission, Port Harcourt, and is currently on leave of absence as the head university relations for the Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria Limited here in Nigeria. Professor Kenneth Nweke, hello to you and welcome to Canvas and Niger-Delta Roundtable.
Thanks you. Thanks so much, Dayo, and good afternoon.
So great to have you here.
Thanks.
I got a series of questions for you, and I have no doubt, being the academic with a long-standing experience that you have and that you are, you'll do justice to our conversation today.
Hopefully.
Great. Let's get into the first question I have for you then, and I'll start from the side or the perspective of the academia, of which you are a respected member, not just here in Riverside, I'm certain, but nationally and even globally as well. Why are universities partnering with Shell, or why do universities don't partner with the private sector at all? And I asked that from this background. I mean, universities, institutions of higher learning, ivory towers as they refer to, are supposed to be or expected to be pristine, not tainted at all, not determined or not influenced by any external factor. Some might be of the position that private organizations might have their own maybe even selfish interests or positions in partnering with universities. So is it in the interest of universities then to partner with private organizations such as Shell?
Yeah, of course. Universities all over the world partner with many organizations, including private and public. And that makes for global visibility. And of course, if you're a university, you must be able to attract a lot of support from within and that side, even in terms of funding, research, and teaching, and so many other things, including infrastructure. And so universities can't drive all that they ought to drive on their own. They need to partner with relevant bodies, both private and public. And so when you ask why do universities partner maybe organizations, whether private or public, but in this case, like Shell, you could see Shell as private on one hand, see it as public one hand, because partnering in terms of sponsorship comes from JV sponsorship, which includes NNPC. And so it's about public funds. Of course, you know how much NNPC invests in such ventures. And so, yeah, it's important that universities partner with private organizations like Shell to be able to get right funding in some areas in terms of research, in terms of research and development, R&D, and in terms of also infrastructure in so many areas, because you know that universities do not have all of those funding that are required. Even those ones that are funded by government or owned by government, not enough. Government, especially in Nigeria, is not doing enough, even outside Nigeria, in terms of adequately funding universities. Even the private ones are not also adequately funded by their owners. And so all over the world, universities reach out to get additional support. And that also makes for global visibility of universities. And so collaborating with private organizations or public organizations or institutions makes universities what they should be.
Now, with reference or considering the critical role that they play, literally in molding and shaping even societies, and to some extent even determining the level of progress or advancement society can make at any point in time. The issue of independence of universities is a much talked about one, and very much expected for them to be able to do the work that they do without seemingly leaning in a certain direction to benefit maybe a small percentage of society or one organization for that matter. Now, since independence is key, does it raise any concern then that they require these fundings from private and or public institutions?
Of course. We talk about independence or autonomy of universities. Autonomy does not mean that you live as an island. No, because for a university, an ivory tower, you must reach out. In reaching out, in being able also to attract, support. It can be in kind, it can be in cash, it can be in so many forms. Would not ordinarily take you away as a university from the independence that you require to exist, or some form of autonomy that is required of you as an institution. That does not take you away from, or you would subsume that to be having some kind of influence on the universities. No. Of course, if you go out there looking for funds, looking for support, it would ordinarily mean that you yield to the whims and caprices of those who are going and begging for support. But of course, as a university, you know what your targets are, you know what you want to achieve, and you know what would make you to derail from the objectives for which you are established. Of course, you will not yield to that, no matter how you go out looking for support. So for the fact that, for instance, some universities are reaching out to SPDC or other organizations would not mean that the SPDC would be influencing those universities in the kind of things that they do. What else? They do teaching and learning, research, development, and maybe community service. So why are you going to influence them? How are you going to influence them to do what? They're not there to, they're not like those within the corridors of power to influence one thing or the other for share. So what? Or other organizations, so of what interest? So I don't see partnering with organizations, whether private or public, by universities to undermine the independence or the autonomy that these universities have. But yes, I agree to an extent that when you go asking for somebody for support or an institution for support, of course, it would mean an impact on your level of independence or autonomy. But I don't see that significantly impacting on the universities on their deliverables.
Professor Nweke, you're an academic, as I mentioned a while ago, of long-standing repute, a professor. And here you are in the private sector. You're on leave of absence currently, working with SPDC as its head of university relations. Some might perceive that to be some kind of some sort of compromising on your part, rather than doing research and being there, advancing the course of knowledge and all of that. Here you are in the private sector. Is that the story, or is there something else to it?
And of course, as a professor in the university, and we are open to give out support in any way, in terms of research and development, in terms of knowledge, in terms of community service. And so what I'm doing is both supporting research and development, outside the university system or my own particular university system, to SPDC, JV, reaching out to as many universities as my role enables me to reach out. And then, so I'm also engaged in a number of things. And so even as the head of university relations, I'm not a permanent staff of SPDC, but I'm, like you introduced me, as a staff of Ignatius Ajuru, University of Education, Rumuolumeni, Port Harcourt, particularly the Department of Political Science. That does not take me away from the where I belong. But here I'm on a temporary appointment supporting SPDC JV in delivering on the interface between the SPDC JV and universities, whether within and outside. And so, and that's also part of what an academic does. So I'm not away from, what my role, responsibilities as an academic or a senior academic, for that matter, should be engaged in. And so that is in no way to mean that it's a compromise, no, or that I have left off teaching, learning, teaching and research, which is sort of my major core, So because in doing the interface that I'm doing now, the role, so I'm coordinating universities on a number of things, and so still playing my role.
Speaking of interface, what is the objective of Shell's University Relations Program? I mean, you've been the head for some time now, so if anyone should know, you do. What purpose does it serve, for Shell especially?
Of course, yeah, like you said, I'm here on leave of absence, working with SPDC, supporting the SPDC JV on a number of things, mainly interfacing with universities on a number of things, programs. One, there's SPDC has been in support of education as far back as the 60s. And then late 90s, it started specific sponsorship of a number of things generally in education, and specifically, again, within Nigerian universities. As far back as 2015, University Relations Unit was established. Like you can take it to the bank to say that I doubt, if there's any other or multinational that has University Relations Unit. I stand to be corrected. So SPDC established University Relations Unit specifically to interface with Nigerian or universities, both within and outside, in terms of a number of things. One, we have sabbaticals and research internship programs. So where professors, senior lecturers of universities anywhere in the world
And pardon
can
me,
come in.
we'll come to the opportunities that are, present to these various classes of persons, and I think that's what you're going to in a moment. But what I'd like to know now is, if the University Relations Department were to, and of course Shell, were to sum up the whole purpose of why there's, like you said, the University Relations Department or team was set up 2015. What was the goal, or what is the goal for Shell in setting that up, which you now heard?
Yeah, of course, basically simple to see how the gap between the academia and the industry, especially the oil and gas industry, can be bridged. Okay, and the gap, there's a huge gap between what happens in the industry and the academia.
What's that gap? How's that gap typified?
Of course, you know what in the academia, what you do, a number of theories, and then hands-on experiences, on the part of the industry, and so that is not found. Okay, it's absent. When people undergo a number of courses, that support the oil and gas industry, and they do not have hands-on experiences. And so with this collaboration, that gap, where you have graduates from Nigerian universities who are not actually industry ready, okay, to fit in when and so it exists that you have preponderance of graduates who would graduate, without the industry experience or hands-on, and so that has been the huge gap between the academia and the industry, and so the essence of establishing a university relations unit is to bridge that gap and then to improve on research and development in certain areas in the oil and gas industry.
All right. So that brings us specifically now to the issue of the opportunities that Shell's partnership with universities presents to students and researchers like yourself.
Yeah, of course. A number of them, like I said, talking about programs. Number one, we have sabbaticals and research internship programs, where, like I said, professors and senior lecturers from those ranks have opportunity to come into SPDs in different disciplines, okay, ranging from now host community development trust stakeholders relations, and then talking about environment, talking about community health, talking about Nigerian content development, talking about oil spills, and a number of them talking about social performance. And so a wide range of disciplines in SPDC where these ones have opportunities to do 12 months, that's 1 year sabbatical. They're able to bring in the experiences from the classroom and then get industry experiences as well to be able to bridge the gap that I'm talking about, so that when they come in, they're able to bring in the academia perspective to doing things in the industry, and then they're able to take away the industry perspective back to the classroom. And so within the 12 months opportunity that they have, and then within the period, they are also able to engage in a number of research on their own, and then to be able to, help to drive efforts towards certain areas that will have gap in their different disciplines, and then and they are able to go back, much more fulfilled, and that helps them to improve in the teaching and learning and research and development, and then again, because of getting these experiences, when they go back, they're able to also help to bridge that gap, that exists between the academia and the industry. And then you have research internship programs where a number of research students come in, whether masters or PhD, come in to have 1 year or 6 months industry experience, from SPDC, JV, in respective areas. For instance, we have those in the centers of excellence, marine and offshore engineering, University, and then Benin. So they come for 6 months hands-on, and then they're able to bridge, that helps to bridge that gap between, what they did or what they do in the classroom and what experiences, and then they get enough support from the system, and including those who come for 12-month internship programs. So a lot, that they do here, and they go about getting hands-on. That helps them a great deal. And so we also support a number of other programs like professoral chairs in different areas like mechanical engineering and at ABU. That's Ahmadu Bello University's area in mechanical engineering. Then we have in geophysics, professoral chair in geophysics. In Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, we have a professoral chair in petroleum engineering, University of Port Harcourt. Then we also have a professoral chair in environmental management and control, University of Nigeria, Nsukka, that is now being upgraded to a full-fledged center of excellence in environmental management and green energy, like to join the other two centers of excellence that we have had over the years, the NMPC, SPDC, JV, Center of Excellence in Marine and Offshore Engineering, Rivers State University, and that of Geosciences and Petroleum Engineering, University of Benin. These are flagship, centers of excellence that are doing so much. If you talk about that of Uniben, so much over time. They've been able to turn out a number of graduates within the period from 2017 and 2018, when these two centers of excellence were, established. Been able to turn out about 200, postgraduate students in different areas, and they are all there in the oil and gas industry. About more than 90% of them are in the oil and gas industry, and the rest between the academics and the other sectors. And so, doing quite a lot in bridging those gaps that I talked about. And so, we also support academic data, for research students. And so that is not also so much there in the public to understand the enormity of what goes on there. And so a number of people that we interact with in universities all over the world, especially in Nigeria, and then NUPRC, that we also partner in terms of regulatory authorities on research data in oil and gas, especially as it concerns SPDC JV. So a number of things that we do in that regard.
A lot of what you just described now and mentioned is quite self-explanatory. The professorial chair, the sabbaticals, and you mentioned the centers of excellence. You mentioned those universities where we have those and the nature of those specific ones in those universities. But broadly speaking, or generally speaking, how exactly does the Center of Excellence program work?
Yeah, of course. Centers of Excellence are set up, or we are set up to, address certain, gaps in certain areas. For instance, we have that of an NPC, SPDC, JV, Center of Excellence in Marine and Offshore Engineering, Rivers State University. A lot of the activities of the oil and gas, the marine sector. And so having students in that area, just to help bridge the gap, that we have in the marine sector. And so a number of courses have been done in that area in the Rivers State University. And so we fund that Center of Excellence with we fund 100% funding, in terms of teaching, payment of honoraria to those teaching their SMEs. And again, there's another thing I need to also mention to you, please, that SPDC staff who are, who have a lot of industry experience are subject matter experts that teach at those, support teaching and learning in those centers, including supervising research works, for at those centers of excellence. We have our SNEPCO colleagues who are SMEs that we fund in terms of logistics to come to the center and teach, and so to bridge this gap we are talking about between academia and the industry. So we spend a lot of money, even outside the funding that we give on an annual basis, the subvention that we give to these centers on an annual basis. We go ahead to fund SMEs, logistics to go to these universities to teach and supervise them, including their internship programs. Okay?
Is Shell involved in curriculum development? And I asked this because earlier in the course of our conversation, I did mention, and you identified as well with me, the importance of the independence, or to borrow your expression, autonomy of universities. They're supposed to remain pristine and very critical to the success of the work that universities do in society is curriculum development. Is Shell involved in curriculum development, and how does this impact on students and the universities in terms of preparing the students for the future of the energy sector?
Yeah, Shell cannot be directly involved in curriculum development for Nigerian universities. That's a business in doing so, okay? But indirectly, yes, I can say, because through these centers of excellence, through the professorial chairs that we have, through the internship programs that we have, and so one way or the other, the activities of all of these impact on curriculum development, and that's the way I can answer that question. But how does this work? I give a typical example. We have the NMPC SPDC JV Center of Excellence in Geosciences and Petroleum Engineering, University of Benin, and that's one of the flagship centers of excellence for us. A model that you can't beat anywhere in the world. And so that center, has, a number of programs, it has gone through a number of curriculum development exercises, supported by University Senate, And so you're having SMEs also being part of the curriculum development for these programs, okay, from SPDC, especially the hands-on. And so particularly these centers of excellence, not the university system as a whole. So while you have these SMEs who also teach in those centers, who also help us to support the teaching and learning and supervising these students' research work. So in terms of curriculum development for those centers, these SMEs of ours also help to, help those centers in developing these their curricula, okay, in this regard. So, to suit or to bridge these gaps that we are talking about between the academia and the industry. So that's why I said to you that SPDC is not directly involved in curriculum development for universities, but indirectly with the support of the SMEs, in running and supporting these programs, especially in the centers of excellence and even the professorial chairs that we have. Because the professorial chairs, we endowed professorial chairs, in different disciplines. And so by way of supporting in terms of subventions that we give and other supervisory activities that we have, these professorial chairs also help in teaching and learning, and then the research and development. And so by way of doing that, they are also influencing or they are engaged in some form of curriculum development in certain specific area, certain areas in certain disciplines in universities, but not directly as an organization.
No, it is canvassed in Niger-Delta Roundtable, and we are discussing Shell's relationships or partnerships with universities and how that's helping to shape and build future leaders. Well, my guest is Professor Kenneth Nweke. We'll go for a break now. We'll return in a moment. The conversation continues shortly. Do please stay with us.
Our yellow and black markers indicate pipeline and flow line right-of-way boundaries. Your activity could impact on the buried high-pressure hydrocarbon pipelines and flow lines, leading to possible leaks and explosion. Please keep off. Do not engage in sand mining or any form of excavation, pipeline vandalism, oil theft and bush burning within pipeline and flow line right-of-way. Do not farm, trade or locate any business on pipeline and flow line right-of-way. It is against the law to apportion land, sell or build on pipeline and flow line right-of-way. Maintain a setback distance of at least 30 meters or about 100 feet from the right-of-way boundaries always. We care for your safety and that of the environment.
This message is brought to you by the Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria Limited, SPDC, operator of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPC Limited, Total Energies, and Ajib Joint Venture.
Welcome back. It is Canvas in Niger-Delta Roundtable, brought to you by SPDC. I'm Diane. Today we are considering Shell's partnerships or relationships with universities and the benefits of that, not just to Shell, but the Niger-Delta and society at large. And of course, my guest is Head of University Relations with SPDC, Professor Kenneth Nweke. Prof, welcome again.
Thank you, Dayo.
All right. Now, you earlier on you talked about we've talked about how crucial and important it is to have these partnerships, how that it's designed to bridge the gap between the academia and the oil and gas industry. Shell benefits, of course, from the wealth of experience and knowledge and expertise brought on by members of the academia, like yourself, who partner with Shell in this partnership, who interface with Shell. But the idea also is to get some experience and knowledge from within the industry and take back to the universities when eventually the sabbaticals end, or the partnerships or the interface ends, and you return to the universities. How does Shell ensure that the knowledge and technology developed in these partnerships are applied in the real-world context?
Yeah, no, but not about Shell particularly, but the oil and gas. And let me give you a typical example. We once, as far back as 2017 or thereabout, we are in Uniport to have the professorate chair in petroleum engineering. The chair occupant at the time, Professor Dosumu, was able to develop an OptiWell, software, which helped to reduce, the time and manage resources to a bearable level in terms of drilling mods, and so that helped a great deal, for SPDC and the oil industry. And so that was developed by a professorate chair, that was endowed by SPDC JV, and then it's been widely talked about, at the time when this happened. And that was, the result of our intervention in professorate chairs in some disciplines like the petroleum engineering. And so, again, all the professorate chairs that we have, across, including Ahmadu Bello University, mechanical engineering, Obafemi Awolowo geophysics, that of Uniport, like I said, in petroleum engineering, and then UNN, environmental management and control, which already is being upgraded to a full-fledged center of excellence that would also include green energy. And these professorate chairs that have been endowed, by the SPDC JV, have a long way in addressing these gaps that we're talking about. For instance, these chairs mentor young academics, who ought to, replace those ones that are, aging, so to say. And then as a professorate chair, you have a number of research assistants that are under you to mentor in those areas. And so these research assistants either would be teaching in the universities, that will also help a great deal, because there are a number of things that they also learn from the industry. That's the professorate chair that would impact on those research assistants that they have through these subventions through this endowment of the chairs that we have. And so the training of these ones and retraining, and then they go also for conferences, with these ones, mentoring them in different areas. And so, and they also have joint publications, which, in reputable journals across the world. And so, in oil and gas, in different disciplines. And so, this is one way, that the program professorial chairs in Nigerian universities help a great deal. So a number of publications, in reputable journals, resulting from the collaborations that they do with their research assistants, are there, and they help a great deal in addressing some of the challenges in the oil and gas. That's on one hand. Yes. And then the teaching of postgraduate students and undergraduate students, that these professorial chairs, provide these leadership roles in different disciplines in Nigerian universities, have a great deal. So not necessarily, about a particular research, that they undergo, that you will now begin to see particularly how these researches, help in driving what SPDC is doing, but in the whole of the oil and gas. And so if they help in training and retraining by way of, engaging in conferences, symposia, whether local or international, and then publications in journals and all that, which of course a lot of people, a lot of organizations also leverage on in terms of solving, their problems in the oil and gas. And so a number of these publications are there, which these professorial chairs lead, including the students that are talking about in the Centers of Excellence.
Speaking, and that's what I'd like to go to next. Speaking of the Centers of Excellence, how does this translate? What you describe right now with the professorial chairs and the sabbaticals and all, how do we leverage something similar with the Centers of Excellence?
Yeah, of course. For the Centers of Excellence, I give you a typical example from the NPC, SPDC, JV Center of Excellence in Geoscience and Petroleum Engineering, University of Benin. You have a number of disciplines, including geophysics, geology, petroleum engineering, and then masters. And as I speak to you, that of University of Benin is running up to a PhD. They started the PhD this year, and so in those disciplines. And of course, you can't underestimate the value that all of this bring. Last year, there were 2 students that were on internship from University of Benin Center of Excellence, with SPDC. In fact, by the end of their stay, 6 months, Total Energy had already employed them. So many other companies, go out for these ones as soon as, as soon as they are stepping out from the these Centers of Excellence. And so telling you, how these Centers of Excellence add so much values to the oil and gas. And so not necessarily particular researches. Of course, even at that, these students who are on internship programs, do all of these things with our SMEs here. And during their research work, they're able to get industry experiences here, and they're able to apply them in real world, situation. And then they go back and complete their projects or their researches. And so these researches, most times, the outcome of these things are published in reputable journals, where a number of people also have access to these publications in solving real-life problems.
As with any venture, no matter how noble, no matter how well-intentioned, or even no matter how well implemented, there are bound to be challenges. So I do imagine that even this partnership, as well-intentioned and possibly well-implemented, Shell's partnership with universities, which you are heading at the moment, I suspect there might be some challenges with these collaborations. What are some of these challenges, and how are they tackled and addressed to ensure that the intent is still accomplished at the end of the day?
Yeah, you can't undermine the fact that there are challenges that you have said. Of course, in terms of sustaining these interventions from time to time is a lot that we grapple with, and as an organization. Of course, you have whatever amount of funding that we have for these programs in the universities, not enough to address some of the needs of these programs. And of course, the situation in the country. And so of late we have not been able to meet a number of, especially the centers or the professoral chairs, not been able to meet a number of things because of the issues around funding. Of course, you know that these things are around JV, not just about SPDC, but the joint venture. And so, it's, like I said, it's around the funding and being able to sustain, the agreements that we have. But to the glory of God, each time we have the circle of agreements that we have with these universities, and then you begin to struggle with, how to sustain these agreements, because you have pushbacks sometimes from the universities in terms of the expectations. And so those are part of the challenges. And then you may also have pushbacks, within the organization. Don't also forget that it's an organization that is also manned by humans. And so all the bottlenecks in getting all of these things put together, are some of the challenges that we get. But to the glory of God, we've been able to, we're in the process of signing off another round of agreements with these universities for the next 4 years. And so that's one remarkable achievement that in corporate relations under the headship of Igoweli, is able to achieve in sustaining the tempo of this collaboration between SPDC JV and the Ivory Tower. And so it's a landmark. I want to tell you that, even as we undergo the transition, of the share sale, so we are able to sustain this even tempo of this level of social investment that we have in Nigerian universities. A very, very remarkable achievement, if you ask me.
Now, I'm certain that with this level of successes recorded thus far, it shows partnership with universities, the professorial chair, the sabbaticals, the center of excellence, and helping with research and development and data gathering and mining and all of that. A lot of attention must have been drawn to this, especially in the academic world. How can universities and students who are interested get involved in Shell's university relations or university collaborations and partnerships?
Of course, whatever we do in Nigerian universities, even ranging from scholarships that may not be within our domain as university relations unit, but our education unit, and so they are published. For instance, we have the university scholarships, that are currently being the adverts on out already, for people to have access to. And then our sabbatical programs and the sabbatical and research internship programs are also usually published for a lot of Nigerians to have knowledge and then know when to apply. So we just finished we are about onboarding the 2024 sabbaticals and research internship, those on the sabbaticals and research internship program. They came in about April, okay, for the 12-month program. That's for this year. And so as we move on within the year, by His grace, if we get the buy-in from the SPDC JV, then we'll do another advert for 2025. And so it's in public domain. People have access to what we do, and it's not in doubt. In terms of also some sponsorships, a lot of institutions also ask for some level of sponsorship from SPDC JV. And so based on availability of funds and all that, and then based on exigencies, and some of those requests are also being granted to an extent. So it's not shrouded in secrecy. It's an open thing.
Speaking of requests, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I mentioned a while ago that I'm quite certain there's a lot of attention focused on this at the moment. I feel certain of that, and I think you've confirmed that. Should we expect, or are you expecting, or currently working on any new partnerships, or are there any new initiatives in the horizon? Speaking of Shell's partnerships and collaborations with universities?
Yeah, like the one I just mentioned to you a while ago, that we have a chair in, that's the NMPC SPDC JV professional chair in environmental management and control, University of Nigeria, Enugu campus particularly. But SPDC JV built a full-fledged center of excellence and commissioned in 2014. And unfortunately, for whatever reasons, that center was not activated to function optimally. And then we have a professional chair instead, that's been running over time. That I speak to you. So that's another area that we thought that we could, venture in getting back to the dreams of the founding fathers of that center, that every edifice that was built at the time, so that all of those resources would not go into the drains. And so we partnered with University of Nigeria and Nsukka to see how, in our time, given the present circumstances, we find ourselves how to improve on what we do there, by way of establishing that, upgrading that professional chair to a full-fledged center, of excellence, and then looking at the component of a green energy to it. And so, as I speak to you, we have signed an agreement, with the university to transform that from a professional chair to a full center of excellence in environmental management and green energy. And so it's a plus, and because we are going to spend more money than we did spend with the professional chair, and then also bringing in the green energy components for postgraduate studies. Where the world is going today in terms of renewable and all that. And so that's another another initiative that we are now bringing on board to what we are doing in terms of our partnership with with universities. And so as the year comes to an end, so we're also thinking of more collaborations that will sustain this tempo of bridging the gap between the academia.
How about you, Prof? I mean, you've been an integral piece as far as these collaborations are concerned. I imagine, even though these collaborations have impacted individuals, academics, students alike, you are at the forefront of spearheading these collaborations at this time. How have you been impacted by the Shell University relationship?
Oh, a great one. Like you asked me if, I'd been compromised, by taking up this role, and I said, never have I been, or does that mean compromise? No, I'm still playing the role, as an interface between SPDC JV and the universities. I mostly coordinate these activities with vice chancellors and the professorial chairs and directors of these centers of excellence, including the professors and the senior lecturers that come in for sabbaticals and internship programs, including the other level of internship. So it's been a great deal. And then also supporting research data. And so it's within my area to do this. And there couldn't be any better person to interface with universities than a professor from a university, okay? Or from the university system that should be able to do this. And if you're not from the academia in doing this, yes, does not mean that the company cannot also do, but I serve as a link, between the industry and the academia.
How has serving as that link impacted you?
Of course, a great deal. So can't you see my face? Can't you see how I'm smiling? Not about what goes into the pockets. Of course, what matters is the level of networking that this role has brought to, has given to me, has offered to me. And so today, I interface with a number of universities in Nigeria and across the world, because I sit on this role, interfacing with vice chancellors of universities and other officials of universities. And so what can be so impacting or more impacting than sitting and interacting with these ones? That alone and then getting the industry side of the experience that is not within the academics. Dayo, apart from Naira and Kobo, which of course is also something that you can talk about. That at least there is a little difference between what you should be able to earn from there and what you earn here, a little. But above all, what matters is the experience and the networking that I have been able to build my capacity, more than what before coming on this role.
Thank you, Prof. And now to wrap on this edition of Canvas and Niger-Delta Roundtable, brought to you by SPDC and her JV partners, we have considered a very important matter, and that's Shell's relationships or collaborations or partnerships with universities and how they are serving to build the next generation of leaders in our society. Thanks for joining us, and thanks. My guest has been Professor Kenneth Nweke, a professor of political science and currently heading the University Relations program or team at SPDC. Professor Nweke, many thanks for your time.
Thank you, Dayo, and thank you, Nigerians and non-Nigerians, for patiently listening.
And thank you as well for being a part of this. I'm Adid Dayo Ilushakin, and thank you for joining us once again. To have yourselves a splendid day.